That's an interesting question. The old and new, right?
The old and new.
Old and the new.
Old and new, right?
Put on music.
In art as well, we always reference the senior artists, the people that come before us.
Like our breakfast building, our national gallery. So we always combine the old and the new because we don't want to forget the old, right?
Maybe I guess that is how we can infuse the old and new, where we repurpose the building that is already there and we just make use for the future.
That time, it was 1965, right? I was a 24-year-old. I envisaged that we should have multi-function buildings, live upstairs, work downstairs, right? In other words, a shop house writ large. That space down there where the offices are is a cave. I was inspired when I went to visit the caves in Kuala Lumpur. And when I went in, I was surprised that the temperature was so cool. And that is because the sun doesn't go in there. Therefore, the spaces and the surrounding structures are not heated up by the sun. Therefore, there's a constant cool temperature. And that's what I created here, right? So this is the Batu Caves.
I've come across Golden Mile Complex when I'm studying architecture. Personally, I was very interested in the shops and atrium areas and how the shops are being laid out where there are different zones and different walkways that people can explore and perhaps get lost in the space in the shopping mall.
During its time, it was really a landmark and a groundbreaking piece of work, right? Because you must understand that during those times in the 70s, the architectural industry in Singapore was very much of a fledgling industry. It was finding its way, and of course there were a lot of famous architects coming into Singapore to slowly develop, but yet I think Golden Mile was one of those that was really came up from the ground, originally designed by our local architects.
This building has no frills. It's raw. They call it brutalist. That's a wrong term. It's just an honest building. It's just being true to itself and to the context.
Every architect, if you ask him, they don't like to be pigeonholed, right? But I think here is a response of an architect trying to use, concrete is not a new material, by the way, but the way it has been applied on Golden Mile, even then, it was actually done quite long ago. So the structure and the surface are being expressed in a very, very natural and underdone state. So you see what it is, the natural color of the gray of the concrete. So the idea of something being very solid, being very everlasting.
If you look at architecture styles during that time, right, in the 1970s, people are looking towards Japan, where metabolist architecture is really booming. Really, you're talking about how can you densify buildings. Golden Mile, you can see that really it's packing things like shopping malls, things like supermarkets, residentials, offices, all into one building.
Golden Mile Complex represents that period in which Singapore decision makers were prepared to try things that have never been tried before. This is an innovation. We dare to try, because the idea of work and life and home as separate is actually a very dehumanizing, you know. The human being must live in an environment in which his family, his life, his work, his passions, his needs are all together, so that the thinking, the mind is not compartmentalized. That's our challenge. So multifunction buildings are very crucial.